Picture this: Saturday night in Unston responded to within 90 seconds of the words leaving your mouth. That moment is going to live on. It's going to be in highlight reels. It's going to be discussed in every basketball podcast and every sports bar and every social media timeline. It's going to be the story of the Indiana Fever's season until either they win the championship or something else even bigger happens. All because she couldn't just enjoy a win and stay quiet. The worst part, it didn't have to be this way, but once you walk to that podium and you make the choice to start lecturing people about what counts as legitimate, you've changed the entire narrative. You've handed everyone who was already criticizing you a gift-wrapped reason to keep doing it. You've proven that the criticism is working, you've proven that it's getting through, and in the modern media environment, that's a losing move every single time. Section 2, rewind the viral video that started it all. 900 words. We need to go back 6 weeks to really understand how we got here. We need to go back to May 30th, 2026, to a game between the Indiana Fever and the Portland Fire that nobody thought was going to be historically significant at the time. The Fever were struggling. They were sitting at 4 wins and 4 losses. The season felt like it was slipping away already, and it was only May. Expectations coming into 2026 were championship level, and instead they were limping through games looking inconsistent and disorganized. Portland was in town, and it was a close game, the kind of game that matters when you're trying to climb out of a hole in the standings. In women's basketball, the player that the entire WNBA universe is watching constantly. And this time, the fan base that had been waiting for this moment, waiting for evidence that something was wrong, waiting for proof of their suspicions, finally had something to work with. The video spread across social media like wildfire. We're talking minutes, not hours, clips of it everywhere, analysis popping up instantly, people breaking it down frame by frame, fans speculating about what was said, content creators making videos about it. The narrative basically wrote itself. There's tension between the franchise player and the head coach. There's instability at the top of the organization. There's a problem that nobody's talking about publicly, but everyone can see in this video. That's the story that took off, and here's the thing about that story. It felt true because the Fever actually were struggling. It felt plausible because the team actually wasn't playing the way a championship roster should be playing. The video didn't create the narrative out of nothing. It just gave visual confirmation to what the eye test was already telling people. The Fever weren't clicking, something was off. And if something was off on the court, maybe something was off between the coach and the star player too. The organization immediately went into damage control mode. Sophie Cunningham posted on social media saying that fans were reading too far into things, said that the play was executed exactly as designed. Caitlin Clark told reporters that the exchange outside of traditional media structures. Some of them are podcasters. Some of them are exactly the kind of people she just indirectly dismissed at that press conference for not being legitimate journalists. Here's the pattern. When a platform pushes her narrative, when coverage leans in her favor, when the tone is supportive of her coaching decisions, Stephanie White shows up. She gives her time, she grants access, she appears on shows, she does interviews, she participates in podcasts. She engages with the very content creators and independent analysts that she just stood at a podium and implied are not real journalists. She validates them with her presence. She legitimizes them by showing up. She says through her actions that these voices matter and their platforms are worth her time. But the moment the coverage turns critical, the moment the questions become uncomfortable, the moment the fan base starts making its dissatisfaction known through channels that don't require a press pass, suddenly the standards for what counts as legitimate become remarkably strict. Suddenly the people who were credible enough, journalists covering the Indiana Fever team who are asking real questions, real reporters who are doing real work. People who are showing up to every practice and every press conference and filing stories that hold the organization accountable in the traditional sense. Those people exist and they deserve their respect. But the suggestion that everything outside of that credentialed bubble is just bots and social media noise is not only inaccurate, it's demonstrably false based on what the fan base has been communicating for weeks. The people posting the videos are not making things up. The people creating the reaction content are not manufacturing outrage. The people doing frame-by-frame analysis of sideline moments are not inventing drama. These are engaged fans. These are people who care deeply about basketball and about this team specifically. They're ticket-buying, jersey-wearing, arena-attending human beings who have spent money and time and emotional energy on the Indiana Fever. Dismissing those people as illegitimate is not the behavior of someone who is fully secure in her position. It's the behavior of someone who feels threatened. It's the behavior of someone who is looking for a way to discredit the criticism without actually addressing the criticism. Because if you address the criticism directly, if you acknowledge that there are legitimate questions about your rotations and your adjustments and your offensive schemes, then you have to answer them. But if you can delegitimize the people asking the questions, if you can say that they don't count as real journalists or real analysts, then you don't have to answer anything. That's the real strategy here. That's what the double standard is actually about. It's not about journalism standards or credibility, it's about control. It's about trying to control the narrative by controlling which voices get to be part of the conversation. And the moment you make that public, the moment you stand at a podium and reveal that strategy, you've lost the battle. Because now everyone knows that's what you're doing. Section 4, the hypocrisy timeline, 900 words. This is where things get really interesting. This is where you start to understand that the press conference moment is not an isolated incident. It's part of a pattern. It's part of a way of operating that Stephanie White has been running for a lot longer than anyone realized. And the proof is in the time problem with what she said. Fast forward to June 2026. Stephanie White is now coaching the Indiana Fever. Now she's dealing with criticism about her own coaching decisions. Now she's dealing with questions about her in-game adjustments and her offensive schemes, and why the team isn't playing at the level that the talent suggests it should be playing at. And she's essentially running the same play that she ran in Connecticut, except this time the people she wants silenced are not trolls sending hate toward players. They're fans and analysts raising legitimate questions about her rotations. They're content creators breaking down her offensive schemes and asking why certain adjustments aren't being made. They're people with cameras and phones offering opinions about what they're seeing on the court. And instead of addressing the criticism, instead of answering the questions, she deploys the exact same rhetoric that she used in Connecticut to defend her players. She says the media has low. It makes it clear that the argument was never really about media responsibility or journalistic standards. It was always about control. It was always about deciding which voices get to be heard and which voices get to be dismissed. That's the hypocrisy that jumps out when you look at the timeline. That's what makes the press conference moment so significant, because it's not just a coach defending herself against criticism. It's a coach running a play that she's run before, but running it in a direction that reveals the real motivation behind the play. In Connecticut, she was defending players. That was noble. That was worth defending. Nobody's going to argue that social media harassment of athletes is okay. But in Indiana, she's defending herself. She's defending her coaching decisions. She's defending her system. And she's using the exact same language and the exact same framework, which means the framework was never really about what she said it was about. It was always a rhythm. She didn't say, the bench is something we're focused on improving. She didn't engage with the actual criticism at all. Instead, she tried to delegitimize the people asking the questions. She tried to say that the questions themselves weren't credible because they were coming from social media and not from official news sources. She tried to avoid the actual basketball discussion by framing the conversation as being about media credibility rather than team performance. That's what makes the press conference so revealing and so problematic. Because if you actually look at what the content creators and the analysts and the fan base have been saying, a lot of it is legitimate basketball criticism. A lot of it is people with real knowledge of the game trying to understand why a team with this much talent isn't playing better. A lot of it is people asking questions that a coaching staff should be able to answer. But instead of answering those questions, Stephanie White went after the credibility of the people asking them. She tried to move the conversation away from basketball and onto the media landscape. And in doing that, she actually confirmed that the basketball questions are valid. She confirmed that there are problems she doesn't want to address publicly. She confirmed that the criticism is real enough to bother her. That's the real story underneath. Knows it. Everyone analyzing it knows it. That's what makes the press conference moment so significant. It's not that she said something outrageous or offensive or over the line in terms of language. It's that she revealed the internal struggle. She showed that the criticism is getting under her skin. She showed that the pressure is building. And in trying to defend herself, she actually admitted that there's something to defend against. A coach who is fully locked in, fully confident, fully at peace with where the team is and where it's going, they don't spend their post-game availability taking shots at the media landscape. They don't spend their press conferences lecturing people about journalism. They talk about the game. They talk about the next opponent. They talk about the adjustments they need to make and the players they're proud of and the path forward. The fact that Stephanie White used this particular moment, a winning moment, a 3-game streak moment, to redirect attention toward who does and doesn't count as a journalist tells you something important about the internal temperature of the coaching staff. It tells you the heat is being felt even through the wins. It tells you that the noise from the fan base is loud enough to have penetrated whatever barrier should exist between a coaching staff and the outside world. And it tells you that Stephanie White does not yet have a clean answer for the legitimate strategic criticisms being leveled at this team. Section 8, the win isn't enough. 900 words. The Fever beat the Connecticut Sun 85-75. It was a forward. You credit your players, you acknowledge the work still to be done, you maybe talk about what was working on the offensive end that you want to replicate, you're gracious, you're confident, you move forward. But Stephanie White used that moment to do something else entirely. She used a winning moment to try to reshape the conversation about media credibility. And in doing that, she made the mistake that a lot of people in positions of power make when they're under pressure. She tried to change the subject when the subject was actually going somewhere she was uncomfortable with, and she did it in a public forum where everything is recorded and clipped and analyzed. Here's the hard truth about modern sports. The wins matter a lot. But in an environment where every word is captured and every moment is analyzed, how you handle the moments away from the basketball court matters too. The scoreboard is the ultimate arbiter of success, but the press conference is the way that coaches communicate their confidence in what they're doing. It's the way they show that they understand the criticism and have a plan to address it. It's the way they build trust with the fan base and the media and the broader community around the team. When you stand at a podium after a win and instead of addressing the legitimate questions about your coaching, you attack the credibility of the people asking the questions, you've chosen a losing strategy. You've chosen a strategy that might feel good in the moment because you're letting some frustration out, but it's going to haunt you. It's going to follow you. It's going to become the story instead of the win. The only winning move in this situation is clean basketball. The only way this narrative goes away is if the Fever start playing in a way that makes the criticism seem unfair. If they start holding leads in the fourth quarter instead of watching them evaporate, if Aaliyah Boston starts finishing at the basket, if the bench starts contributing in meaningful ways in regulation instead of just in the final few minutes, if the second half adjustments start happening, if the rotations start making sense, if the offensive schemes start working more consistently. That's what basketball success looks like. That's what gets the job done, not press conference lectures about who counts as a journalist, not trying to delegitimize the people asking questions, not trying to control the narrative, just clean, convincing, dominating basketball. That's the only thing that actually puts noise to rest. And here's what Stephanie White needs to understand, because I think there's a real chance she doesn't fully grasp this yet. The room is watching. The cameras are always on. The people you called illegitimate are not going anywhere. They're going to be outside the arena, they're going to be in the parking lot, they're going to be in the comment section and on the live streams and in the reaction videos and in the analysis threads. They're the audience, all of them. The credentialed ones and the non-credentialed ones and the fans with a camera and the kids with a phone and the old school reporters with a notepad. This is the new media. This is what covering women's basketball looks like in 2026. And the only move that actually